I wanted to talk about what things cause an injury in musicians. And I kind of pulled this from one of the lectures that I gave with my students this past fall. So I'm going to kind of shorten it and condense it, because otherwise I'll go into great detail and you guys will get bored and not want to listen to any of this. So, but just some general things to think about. And some of them are obvious, like obviously if you trip and you fall, that's an injury, and that's an acute injury. If you're lifting a box or something, you kind of pull your back, that's an acute injury. I'm looking more at the longer term things that we do in daily life that may be contributing to injuries for us as musicians. So the first and biggest one is poor posture. And Andy, I know that you know this, but as a therapist, posture is so crucial. It is our base of support for our body to work off of. And when we are not in good alignment with our posture, then everything else kind of starts to adapt and work a little bit funky, and actually has to overwork. So when our posture is good, everything can work in a much better biomechanical way. So you always want to be thinking about your posture. And it's not as easy as just thinking, oh, I need to sit up straight, all right? You really have to make sure that you balance the muscles around that are your postural muscles so that they're even and that they're working correctly. Because if I were to say, if I'm just going to sit here and slouch, and I say all of a sudden I'm just going to sit up straight, yes, that's working on my posture because I'm thinking about it in that second, but I'm not actually doing specific exercises to work on my posture and maintain it. So that's where you kind of want to get into and make sure you get set up on a really good postural program, because everything we do this day and age is in front of us and we're slouched. Our phones, right? Our electronics, all that stuff, and our instruments. All right. I don't know of any instrument that we can play going backwards. Be nice, because it'd take us out of those deforming positions. So that's one thing that can lead to injuries. The other thing that can lead to injuries is poor posture at our instruments. So I know I talked about this when I did the challenge, and it's really important that we match our body posture to our instrument, and that as we work on our posture, some of our posturing at our instrument may actually change a little bit too, and that's okay. So it's important to think about, proper technique at the instrument, but you have to include proper body mechanics and what your body can actually do at your instrument as well, that matches what your body is. And all of our body types are different. So that's really important. So what works for one person may not work for another person. So having good posture at your instrument as much as you can that the instrument allows. And obviously you have to contort to some degree, but the key is to move in and out of those contortions, which I think I've talked about before in detail. The other thing is poor alignment of your joints while you're actually playing. So a lot of people I see will kind of go into hyperextension at the thumb a lot of the time, or they'll be in a kind of a funky position at their instrument in this way. So their joints kind of all in an ick position. It's important to make sure that your joints are kind of as protected as they can be, and as neutral as they can be at your instrument as well. So if you're playing for long hours and you're putting your joint in an icky position, over time that's going to build up and wear down that joint. So you want to have it be in as good of alignment as possible. The other thing that leads to injury is staying in one position for too long, which kind of goes into going and sitting in your practice room for hours on end and not taking breaks. So you really just want to make sure that you get out of those deforming positions and take breaks every so often so as you kind of move. But when we stay in one position for too long and we always practice in the exact same position, our muscles will adapt and we will get lengthening and shortening depending on what we're doing. And then that creates an imbalance, all right? And that can lead to injury as well. Muscle tension is another big one. So you always want to be scanning your muscle tension to see where you're holding tension, because a lot of times we'll be stressed and all that stuff. We will have tension, or we'll kind of be co-contracting. We'll be putting too much tension down on our strings or our keys. So it's important to really look and assess what's my muscle tension at? What's it doing? That's super important, because if we have too much tension, then that can cause injury as well. Our muscles get tired. They're constantly contracting. That constant contraction makes them, cranky, and they start to revolt. So like a lot of people will complain of like shoulder pain or neck pain. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, I hold all my tension in my shoulders. Well, it's because your muscles are tired, because they're coming up and they're trying to be earrings. Your shoulders are trying to come up and be earrings on you. And they get tired, and then they get cranky, and then they start speaking to you. All right. And that speaking is pain typically. Okay. The other thing is not exercising. So it's really important to exercise. Find something that you love. Andy, I know you and I talked about Pilates, and I started doing Pilates about 2.5 months ago, and I absolutely love it. It works so much of what musicians need. It's amazing. So find an exercise that you love, whether it be running. I love to run too, cycling. Some people love CrossFit. Some people, just like to go out and go for walks. Whatever you find that gives you kind of that energetic release and that is good for your body, get your blood flowing, gets your blood pumping, and helps to strengthen and align your posture. That's always a really good thing. But not exercising can lead to injury too, because it creates muscle imbalances. All right. The other thing is not warming up properly. All right. So if you're just sitting down and doing scales and arpeggios and actually not warming up your body, that can lead to injury too. You want your body to be warm and supple before you sit down. So just like an athlete, before you actually go out and work out, or before you actually go and play a professional game, if you're a professional athlete, they warm up their bodies. You guys have to do the same thing. You have to physically warm up your body. And that doesn't mean the static stretching. That means the dynamic stretching routine, which I just actually finished recording with a trainer, and it's all complete. So I will be talking about that probably in the upcoming weeks as well. Sorry, I have little notes to remind myself what I want to talk about. Okay, the other thing is poor practice environment. That can lead to injury too. So if the lighting is really dark and you're leaning forward, your head's kind of in this forward position, you're squinting to try and see the music, that can lead to problems in your neck and in your shoulders as well. If the environment is too cold, you want to make sure that you're nice and warm, and that that tension when you're cold can lead to injuries as well. It get tense and all that other stuff. So you want to make sure that your environment is sort of welcoming as well. If you're not comfortable and not relaxed when you're in your practice environment, then your muscles are going to be more tense. Anytime our muscles are tense for any length of time, they like to get cranky. All right. So not drinking enough fluid is another one that can cause injury in the long haul. Obviously, this is something that builds up with time, but most of us are probably walking around pretty dehydrated. I don't think most people drink quite enough water. I know I'm guilty of that as well. I try, but sometimes I just don't. But our life force is our breath, and we are made up of water. And if we don't drink it and rehydrate ourselves, then that's not good for our muscles and our tissues. So our muscles and tissues need that hydration. They need that hydration. All right. Sudden jump in your playing time. That can lead to injuries as well. I see this a lot, especially with students, even with professionals, actually. When I think about it, it's, professionals will come and they're like, oh, I'm dying. And it's because they've had all these gigs straight in a row and they've had to recording sessions and they've had to increase their time playing. So make sure that if you know that there's going to be a busy time, that you slowly, gradually increase your play time, because that can lead to injuries if you jump up too fast. Okay. And usually when we're jumping up our playing time, it's usually under stressful circumstances. So that doesn't help, right? It's kind of like a perfect storm. Stress and a huge increase in our playing time can lead to those injuries. As I said before, not taking enough breaks. And again, your breaks don't have to be long. They can be 2-3 minutes. Every 30 minutes, set a timer, get up and walk around, get that drink of water, get out of that deforming position, okay? That's the next one. Get out of the deforming positions that our instrument puts us in, okay? Exercise in the opposite direction as well. So if you're guitar, if you are violin, viola, you're always kind of hanging to the left, which I realize that it looks to the right for you guys because of the video, but you want to make sure that you then open up and you come in the other direction, because again, what happens when we are in a deforming position for a long period of time, our muscles will adapt, okay? And as our muscles adapt and change, things shorten, things lengthen, and then we get out of balance, okay? Which also leads back to good posture, really. And the other thing is stress, trauma, anxiety, those kinds of, the whole mind-body connection is huge. I'm a big believer that our body speaks to us about pain because there's stuff going on that we need to kind of look at. So what is your body trying to tell you when we get pain? So all that stress and anxiety we hold inside of our body. We hold that inside of our body, and then that can create muscle tension, which then can create injuries as well.